Anas, welcome to Start Now. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can do that. So my name is Anders Liu-Lindberg.
Hmm.
I'm a partner at a company called Business Partnering Institute. We started that more than 6 years ago now, and we help finance and accounting professionals across the world become better at talking to people, become more business oriented, using the numbers for more stuff than just entering into spreadsheets. And we work with probably half of the largest Danish companies in various different shapes and forms, and also some international companies as well. So that's been pretty exciting. I also have a blog on LinkedIn or newsletter, which has more than 300,000 subscribers. And
Wow.
today I also have close to 350,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I'm also the most followed Dane, at least by popular count. I don't think there's
Whoa.
any official lists. So yeah, that's a bit of background.
Oh, that's
Wow.
insane. I didn't even know that. Did you know that, Kim?
Who is this guy they have coming in
Yeah.
here?
Wow. We are honored to have you here. Um, could you tell us a bit more about this whole journey? Because you are one of the co-founders, right, at your company. Could
Yeah.
you tell us a bit more? Why have you decided to start it?
Yeah, I mean, it goes many years back in the sense that, how do you actually come in contact with people that want to start a business, or how do you get ideas
Hmm.
yourself? And for me, I think it started all the way back in 2012, where I started to share thoughts and content on LinkedIn. Many years ago now, and you're thinking like content on LinkedIn in 2012.
Hmm.
What's that even?
Right.
And it wasn't a lot back then. But then I started the blog in 2014, so it's actually 10 years this month here, maybe even this week, I think, that the blog started, and now 300,000 subscribers later. But that's a separate story, let's say. But essentially, publishing thoughts, publishing content around a finance function in a
Hmm.
company, how should they work differently, what happens when technology comes in, all these topics I kind
Oh,
of
okay.
touched on. And then I got to publish a few articles in different magazines and whatnot. So people were kind of, they were noticing me there. So in 2016, kind of two people noticed me. One was a guy who was a CFO at ATP, which is the third largest pension fund in Denmark, and he was writing a book about the topic that I was also talking a lot about. So he thought, maybe we should bring this guy on board the book project. So I kind of got involved in that. And later in the year, a guy called Michael wrote to me and said, hey, it seems like you have some interesting thoughts. Maybe we should meet. So we met a cold November day at the Torvehallerne here in Copenhagen. And he kind of shared his ideas about, yeah, I'm working at Deloitte today, but maybe I want to do something differently. You seem to be interested in this stuff. Maybe there's something here. I don't know. So he kind of shared those ideas, and I was like, I'm part of writing the book right now, and I'm doing a career, and I'm not really sure I should, think about much more at this time. But he was kind of persistent, so we kept talking throughout 2017, and kind of an idea formed in his head and my head about starting this company. So we kind of laid out a business model canvas and
Hmm.
kind of try to seize the opportunity and say, oh, why should companies work with us? And then we launched in April 18, and the main author of the book was also a part of it then. So one full-time person, I was kind of on the marketing side, working my career, and then the CFO was kind of there to maybe open some executive doors. And then so basically Michael was the first full-time person, and that's
Hmm.
kind of where it got started, I'd say.
And what was the sentence, when you said that why should the companies work with you? What was the sentence? What did you come up with?
It's because we wanted to crack the nut on business partnering. Business partnering is kind of a concept where you take specialists, could be finance people, but could also be HR or IT people or procurement or legal, all these people that are kind of supporting the main functions in a business, and say, how do we bring that expertise to the table so it can help business leaders make better decisions? As a concept that had been around for maybe 15, 20 years at that time when we got together, and I've been working quite a lot with it in my previous employer at Maersk, and made good strides, I'd say. But we also saw how many companies were struggling with this, especially within the finance function, which is kind of
Mhm.
where we come from. And we wanted to help them succeed because they had been sold the big consulting projects 5, 10 years prior. They had tried themselves as well. None of it kind of worked, so we wanted to bring a different, more practical approach to it because we've done it ourselves.
Mhm.
So that's why they should kind of work with us.
Mhm.
That's right. I have a question about when you started writing. Was it just because you were excited about the topic, those business related things, or did you have a background already in business?
No, so I started writing, I guess, as a personal branding project, but also
Oh, okay.
because I didn't see many finance people sharing their practical experiences about what's happening. Right? You see consulting companies do it, of course, and you may see, people from kind of accounting and finance associations. I was in the U.S. at the time, right? So
Yeah.
not in Denmark, and so, but no practitioners really. So I just wanted to very simple and practically share my stories, my views.
Right.
But I guess it was just a personal branding party. If you'd asked me at that time, do you think all these things
Mhm.
could happen? I'd be like, no way in hell.
That's crazy. Just think that you know, content nowadays is very much talked about in the areas of marketing, things like that. Not just for businesses, but like across industries and also so like society wise, it's very much involved in politics as well, and so on. And it's so interesting to see that you starting a blog in 2012 came so far, and kind of like the one of the drivers, of course, was the just the whole thing about creating content. Do you have any comments on that?
I think, so when I started the blog, I'd say for the first 27 blog posts, so basically half a year, pretty much nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, maybe there would be like 300 views on the blog, and you're kind of reaching that point where you're saying, this is because I don't have a big following because I had, maybe 1,500 at that time, right? Is it because it's not interesting? I don't know, right? So you're kind of starting to doubt yourself. But then I think it was kind of like blog post 28, some editor at LinkedIn kind of picked it up and it got exposed a little bit. So instead of 300, maybe it was 2,000. And I was like, oh, this is exciting.
Yeah.
So it kind of gave me that fuel to keep going. And then maybe for the next 27 blog posts, kind of like different editors picked it up and featured it at different places. So maybe I went from 1,500 to 3,000, 4,000, and it kind of fueled me a little bit to keep going, right? But it wouldn't have come to this point if it wasn't for consistency,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think, being a content creator today, whether you want to do it for yourself, for a business, for marketing, for politics, whatever it might be, a lot of people want to do that, right? Everyone pretty much has their own YouTube channel or they're twitching or they're whatever they're doing, right? Everyone is kind of doing something,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot, they kind of stop soon again because they're like, well, I expected to see fast results, right? I hear about all these viral stuff happening, and I'm not seeing any results, so maybe it's not for me. But it's really about consistency. You can't expect to hit it big right off the gate. Some will do it, right, and you hear these stories, but there are thousands of others that don't. But those that kind of stick to it and show consistency, they will also get results, right? So remember, I started the blog officially on LinkedIn in 2014, and it's only in sometime in 2016 where I've also published in a few other, no big magazines or anything like that, but that people start to really come back to me and say, hey, maybe he can actually work with us for something. Maybe he can speak at a conference. So it took a while before it turned into anything just remotely worthwhile, right? So you really got to have that consistency and that grit to stay with it and not expect to go viral in a fortnight.
Yeah. Do you think that the key for consistency, just not just in content creation, but also like businesses and other things, is endurance? Is it like to create a certain strategy along, your on your as a habit, or is just maybe changing your mindset about your goals? Because when I talk about this, I don't. You said yourself you wouldn't even imagine you would come to the place where you are right now, and how can people escape from that phenomena where there's like the New Year's gym,
Yeah, exactly.
and they like that commitment that lasts maybe like a month,
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's all about mindset, right? Of course, but to build a mindset, you need to start with, taking the first micro step into doing something differently, right? Then you can build a habit, which turns into new behaviors, which eventually turns into a mindset. So I have not constantly said, today I'm going to start my growth mindset journey, right? Growth mindset probably still is a big thing, but was a big thing like 5-10 years ago. But I didn't consciously say, I'm going to have a growth mindset and things are going to be differently. But when people work with me or meet me today, or people that have known me for a while, they're like, Hernandez, you're probably the person I know that has the biggest growth mindset I've ever seen, right?
Oh, really?
Because I was this kind of shy introvert finance professional that kind of wouldn't leave my, let's call it cubicle, right? I'll leave my desk to go and talk to other people, maybe within my team, but different department, different floor in the building, no way I wouldn't call up people, nothing like that, right? And today I'm kind of a bit all over the place with different things, both online but also in the physical world, if you will, building relationships left, right, and center, doing sales, doing marketing, doing operations, doing HR, doing kind of everything you need, of course, to build the business as well. And that was just not written in the cards anywhere. I've always liked business. I've always wanted to become a CEO or something, right? But going from where I kind of was when I started my career to where I'm today, and who knows what the future is going to bring. Never imagined that, right? But it's really about that mindset to say, okay, I need to start doing things differently. A very concrete example is around networking. Right? Some people, they really love networking. Most people, they really hate it and dread it because they're like, who's going to want to talk to me, right? How am I ever going to get into a good conversation? And I was like most people, right? I would go into an event and I'm like, okay, phone is kind of burning in their pocket, right? You just want to escape into the wall or something like that. But I was like, networking, it has to, if I want to succeed with what I want to do in my career, I have to become good at networking. So, someone that is kind of more, formal and technical and not necessarily knowing how to do things, you need a structure, you need a framework for how to do things. So I kind of read about, this approach where you kind of scan the room when you go into a networking event or a networking whatever, and you're kind of looking for 3 people that are standing in kind of like an open constellation, because they don't probably know each other from beforehand, so they've probably found a conversation at this networking event. And
what does it mean, an open constellation?
yeah,
So
so they're not standing too closely because then they probably know each other and came together.
Okay.
Right, so they're more loosely kind of standing, and so there's always room for a 4th person. So you can basically just go up to them and just say, "Hey, I'm Anders. Nice to meet you. What are we talking about here?" And like, yeah, because they don't know each other. They just found a conversation. So why not having a 4th person in there? If there's just 2 people, probably came together and they know each other. So it's difficult to get into conversation. If it's 1 person, maybe you'll do it once in a while, right? Because you also want to be nice to people, but there's no conversation there. If there's 4 or more people, there's typically 1 person dominating the conversation. So you can go to listen, but it's challenging to become a part of the conversation. And I've later on also tried to kind of be that person that's there in a bigger group and kind of dominating the topic. So the best way to find a conversation if you're a bit shy or not sure what to do with networking is to find that open 3. So I tried that and I just threw myself at it, and more often than not, it went well. And sometimes, of course, it was a bit of a disaster, but you gotta step outside that comfort zone and try something that is gonna feel like, oh, I'm really not sure I want to do this, but doing it, you build confidence. It's a bit like with kids, right? I don't know if you guys have kids, right? I have 2 kids, and there are things that they don't
He's
want
about
to
to have one.
Yeah, there are things they don't want to try, right? And you're like, yeah, you should try it, and then they try it and like, oh, wow, I can do this, and the next time they're like, I'm just gonna do it. But when we're adults, it's much harder to try and do these new things. So it's really about that mindset, saying, today I'm going to do something differently. I'm going to do something that's outside my comfort zone. And tomorrow I'm also going to do something that's out of my comfort zone. I don't know what that is every single day, right? But probably something is going to happen that's going to push me outside that comfort zone. And for doing that, the growth is enormous.
I would just wanted to add a little bit on that, in the fact that I also like to just enjoy the process. Like to find joy in it, and not so much so of having this picture in the future of this maybe unreachable person that you want to be, because every single day that you are doing these things that you just talked about, you might become frustrated that you are not there, and maybe this there doesn't even exist. It's much better just to be surprised by the good outcomes of the things you're enjoying doing, and challenge yourself, like to just enjoy the challenging parts of this process.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. I mean, when I was in my career as a finance professional, I was young, very ambitious, and thought I should get promoted pretty much every second week, right? And I'm sure many professionals kind of feel like that. And maybe there's one in a 10,000 that it happens like that, right? And of course, those are put on a pedestal and all that stuff. But to most people, it doesn't happen like that. But it's so easily that you get frustrated by, okay, I didn't get promoted, or when I get promoted, 10 other people also get promoted. Like, then it's not special, right? And so I was kind of pushing towards always getting that next level, or going towards that CFO or even CEO someday, right? Which was, those are the kind of things that leads to burnout, right? You're like,
right.
I'm just never getting where I really want to go. Whereas when I've become an entrepreneur, I kind of have this motto like, keep building. And I don't know what I'm building towards, but I know that if I keep building, like, my brand on LinkedIn, or the business, or, whatever it may be, if I keep building, then things will come. Good things will happen. And how do I know this? Well, at any given time, I can say, if I look back a year, where was I? Where was my brand? Where was our business? Well, we're actually much better now. It's actually quite a lot of things that happened. But if you get caught up in those, daily, weekly, monthly fluctuations, that could be frustrating, right? Because it's never a, one-way street to the top. There's going to be, things where, okay, we had to let this person go, or, a star performer left the company, and, it's great that we can foster that kind of talent, but of course it hurts in the short term. So there's always going to be these bumps in the road. And if you let yourself be hit by those bumps hard, it's going to really slow you down. Maybe it's even going to stop you from achieving what you wanted to do. So just know that by keep building, by keep trying to do the right things, by keep making sure you have not 100 priorities, but maybe 3, max 5 priorities that you as a company or as an individual can work towards. If you have skill, if you have competence, if you have that mindset to wanting to grow, you're going to get there, right? Because, you have the will and the grit to do it, and you have the skill to do it as well. So of course you're going to get there. But if you keep letting yourself get frustrated by these things in the short term, you're probably not going to get there.
Once I've heard this advice that is really touching on what you're saying, that because sometimes people, they see their life as like a straight line that I need to get from point A to point B, and my point A is my starting, right, and point B is my end. But if we imagine our life more kind of as that it's kind of like a circles, and it's layering up on each other, and then whichever direction you go, of course you're gonna pick something that you like, but whichever direction you go, like, you're not gonna ruin anything. Like, you're just gonna build up on what you have already built. So even if you don't know what you're building, and yet you're building something towards something bigger, and we'll see what opportunity comes. Like, that's I think that was one of the advices that I got when I was kind of like not even doing anything, and then this kind of advice tells you, like, okay, at least do something, and you get to somewhere, and then you see, okay, do I need to course correct, or do I just continue in the same direction, or you can decide later, basically.
I'd say I see a lot of things as an accelerator, right? But imagine that you have to kind of go around the moon, right? And you have to go around the moon to get speed to actually get home to Earth, right? But there's going to be quite a big part of that going around the moon where you are definitely not having enough speed to go to Earth, and you're probably going to be doubting yourself. So you probably need something or someone to help you at that point where you're kind of like, so you come into it and you're like trying to go around, but once you're kind of hitting that bottom spot, you really need something to help you boost, right? And it's the same thing with your career or with your business, right? You're gonna face obstacles where if you don't get help from a leader or a mentor or a co-founder or something else, you're probably not gonna get there, right? So thinking that we can get everywhere we want to go alone is kind of nonsense, right? We need help, kind of interventions to help us get through this, right? So whenever I go out and talk to business leaders or finance leaders, and they're saying, we want to develop our company or we want to develop our people, I'm like, think of it as an accelerator. But if you don't give them that intervention to help them improve, could be a learning program or, as I said, a leader role model, they're gonna get stuck. When they get stuck, do something differently, right? Find a different accelerator, find a different career, because getting stuck, sure it goes for all of you, right? Too, it's just not a nice feeling. You don't want to be stuck. You want to be unstuck. You want to get that boost from going around the moon and actually accelerating to the next level in your career. We're going to face the same thing. It's again an accelerator. You need help to get to the next level. We all need help to get to the next level, right? There's no one sitting at the top saying, I don't need any help. We all need help.
Mentorship and partners, is this something that you guys help with in the Business Partnership Institute?
I mean, I'd say for me, I would never have been part of starting a business if Michael kind of hadn't pushed me into it. Right now, I'm of course really happy that he did, because thriving in this setting, in this environment, and really having fun every day. So I needed that push to get to there, and I'm sure I get in contact with people every single day that I'm their kind of push or intervention to get to the next level. So that is what we try to do, right? We try to help these finance professionals who are seeing technology, AI, bots, and everything coming to perhaps take over a lot of the things that they're doing today, and thinking to themselves, what I need to do. I'm like, well, you need to go out and talk to people. Well, I'm not good at talking to people. Okay, but let's help you become good at talking to people. And I'm simplifying here a little bit, right? But it's just such a good example. And it was funny. I was out having a dinner with some colleagues I've had at a consulting engagement, was now stopped. So I kind of like, they were sending me off. And then I come back to our office late because I had to pick up my things and pick up the car. And I guess one of the neighbors in the area, we live in Carlsberg, and one of the neighbors, he's like, so what are you actually doing in there? And I'm like, well, we're helping finance people become better at talking to other people. And he was like, yeah, they really need that. And then he was so enthusiastic about it that he kept continue walking whatever he was doing, and then he was like shouting back at me and saying, not only do they need it talking to other people, they also need it talking to themselves or talking to each other, right? And I was like, okay, it's a kind of random neighbor of our office is kind of saying that. It's just so true, right? And so we get just get confirmed by that every single day, and we even started to write a book about that as well that we'll publish next year. So it's just a fundamental belief that we need to help these professionals.
I would like to go a bit more back and talk about the networking. I think it's really much what we are experiencing right now. So I would really like to dig deeper into that, because I see you have a lot of experience there. How do you even find networking events with the people that would actually be good for you? Do you have some tricks on how to do that?
I think, depends on who you want to network with, right? I mean, for me, I want to network with people that are in the finance and accounting profession, right? Because that's where our clients are. That's where the people that I want to help are. So finding conferences where, these people meet is fairly easy. Then it's just a matter of, do I want to prioritize it? Do I want to pay for going there? No, I want them to pay me, but that's a different story. But that's pretty easy to find. What I networked with in the past was more, or perhaps also kind of talent networks, right? If you're more early on in your career, try to, get into some of these talent networks, because you're going to meet a lot of other bright people from different professions, but all kind of maybe have that career mindset that you want to get into. So that's definitely something you can look towards, but kind of always, events or, conferences or whatever it is within your profession or within the industry that you want to be in. I think those are the easiest ones. And there you will probably also find more facilitated networking. If, as I said, it's hard for most of us to networking. So just being thrown into, now is this 30 minutes networking slot, and I'll see you in 30 minutes. We're all kind of terrified for that, right? But if there's kind of you have a number and you need to find someone else with that number, then there's a facilitated networking, and it's much easier to actually go and have a conversation with people. Kind of like speed dating, right? So there's a concept, a framework for doing it, and after 5 minutes, you have to move on to the next person. But there's going to be a next person, and that next person is there to network as well, right? So the facilitation of the networking makes it easier for everyone to be in.
And you also mentioned mentors. Do you have your own mentor?
I don't have a mentor as such. I think what I do is kind of use my community, especially on LinkedIn, to kind of always push me or learn from, or if they do something that works, I might be doing it as well, right? So I don't have that person that's kind of mentoring me, but obviously my co-founder Michael has been very instrumental in me getting to where I'm at. Today we have a partner group of 5 people who all bring something different to the table. So I know that they can help me with stuff and I can help them with stuff. So we're really bouncing things off from each other and becoming a lot better from that. We've also last year we worked with a business coach who kind of helped us come together as a team and see our differences as strengths, as positives, rather than something to be frustrated about or feel negative because, hey, you're not as good as doing this as I am, so you're an idiot and I'm just an expert. Instead of saying, well, you shouldn't actually be doing this. I should be doing this because I'm the best at this, but you're great at something else, so you should be doing that. Right? So becoming much more comfortable in our roles and our ways of working together, and getting that confidence in the fact that I don't need to be involved in anything just because it's my business. No, I'm involved in what I'm good at. And if you want, you can consult me on other stuff, right? But it's not because I'm good at it. It's just because we're together building a business. And I think that's probably something that many, founder teams and entrepreneurs struggle with in general, right? Because you start a business and you feel like you have to be good at everything, rather than saying, here's my spike, here's what I'm good at. So why don't I run with that on behalf of the company, on behalf of the partnership, whatever structure you have for your company, rather than saying, let's all do everything together, which kind of doesn't make sense, right? Because why should we all do this one thing together? It's just not efficient for our company. It's probably not the best way to do it.
Would you wanna?
Yeah, because this is a really good topic about just giving out responsibilities, just and so on. How was the process for you?
Yeah, so we kind of went from having product responsibilities. So one would have kind of learning development product, one would have like consulting product and so on, to having more classic, let's say, CXO roles, right? Because when you have product responsibility, someone could feel like, well, I need to be involved in the sales and everything because that's what I'm good at. Or someone would say, well, I'm really good at productivizing stuff, so I need to be involved in everything. And it's kind of very inefficient, and everyone is feeling like I'm stepping on someone else's toe. So we said, yes, we're going to have our products, but wouldn't it make more sense to have kind of, very more specific roles? So we had it before, but it was not that enforced, if you will. So we said, okay, Anders, you're the marketing, the sales guys, so you're going to be the CCO, right? Christian, you're the product guys, you're going to be the CPO, and so on and so forth. And it worked much better like that.
Really?
And we still had to come together as a team and be comfortable by the fact that, okay, just because Anders is the one that's in charge of sales and marketing doesn't mean he's the only one selling, right? Or just because Christian is in charge of product doesn't mean he's the only one working with product. Of course, we all have to be involved, but he's leading the efforts. He's in charge of involving us when we need to be involved. We shouldn't be knocking at his door and say, I want to be involved in product. No, he should be leading the charge. If he's not doing that effectively, let's have a conversation around it. Or if I'm not doing it effectively, let's have a conversation around it. And we've had many of those conversations, but it's on my kind of plate to make sure that this happens and that I facilitate it and I bring in the right people to do it.
Okay, cool.
Could we go even more back? And I would actually like to know, like you talked about your product, right? Could we go deep into like hearing about what is the product? Like, how do you actually go about helping those financial people to be better?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. So I started by saying, our tagline was kind of crack the nut on business partnering. And the most conventional way to do that is, of course, to try and train people to say, okay, you want to crack the nut? Let's try to show you different concepts and tools and how to do it, and bring in our stories as practitioners of how we have done it. So we did that. We created learning programs where companies, so we don't really do for individuals, we do for companies, could send their 20, 25 people on a learning journey for maybe 6 to 9 months, where every month they would have a module. It could be on communication skills or influencing skills or problem solving skills, different kind of skill sets that they need, but that they don't learn in school and certainly wouldn't learn on a job either. So that was kind of our first product. Then we also started a roundtable with some of the biggest companies in Denmark, where we would take two kind of, not the CFO, but maybe someone reporting to the CFO and a sidekick, and bring them together in kind of let's share how we do it. Let's bring in a few speakers, and then we network around this so we can learn from each other on how to crack the nut on business partnering. So we had that kind of that roundtable for a few years. And then it started maybe leading a bit into a few consulting assignments, but always related to the learning part. But there was definitely an opportunity to do consulting. But then we also definitely saw a need for, okay, let's say you have 5 of these business partners in your team. 2 of them are leaving, you need to hire someone, but it's going to take a while. Maybe we can do some interim assignments in your team as well, so we could actually work as business partners. So instead of developing them from the outside, we would have kind of like a role model on the inside that could show how this is done while also filling a need for the leader, for instance. So that's why we started kind of interim consulting. So now we have the learning shop, which is continue to develop, and we're kind of expanding the product in there, because kind of what happened was we showed them a slide of this is how a typical learning journey could look like. And they're like, yeah, I'm just going to buy that one. Then let's just go. And we're like, well, there's actually a lot of other things to learning and development. It could be coaching, could be casework, lots of different things. So let's try to unfold that. But once they saw that slide, they're like, we're just going to take that. And it's not a cheap journey, so it's not bad, but it's just probably we're missing out opportunities there. So we're kind of expanding on the product there. And in consulting, we want to do more consulting projects as well. So we're kind of trying to expand on that as well. And we need to hire more consultants to fill that interim space also. The great thing about all the products is that there's a lot of synergies. So just because you're a consulting going out on an interim assignment, it doesn't mean you couldn't lead a learning program in your next assignment or a consulting project. So they really need to go through all kind of like the product stages that we have. And then our ambition is not to be a classic consulting company where you come in as a graduate and then you end as a partner and then you can retire, be a wealthy person. But no, we want to be let's just say a career accelerator. We have in Danish this concept of a karrierekanon, so a career cannon, where basically we want them to come in, we want to give them challenging assignments, and then in a period of 2 to 4 or 6 years max probably, we want to shoot them out into their further career, wherever they want to go, at a level where they wouldn't have gotten to if they have just done a standard corporate career. So kind of the product, of course, is there, but it's also a career product. That's how we attract people into the company.
That's really cool.
Because these people, they will come in as and buy this product of.
No, so that's just regular hires, right? We've been really kind of successful in attracting people that are studying for the masters, and then we kind of have to train them, educate them from there and what consulting is. We've also had a few more senior hires now. We're looking for even more senior hires now, so we can bridge the gap between a graduate and a partner with 20 years of experience, so that we get a more, let's say, homogeneous group that is kind of like all the levels are filled a little bit.
Right. So usually, just so I understand, in this learning journey, it's not like that you just play a video for them.
Nope.
It's more kind of like that you go with them in one room. That was the one. And then how does the work with the round table you mentioned? I don't fully understand that.
Yeah, so we don't have the round table anymore, but essentially we would have 4 meetings a year. Where we brought in typically an external speaker that would speak about a topic. It could be communication, for instance, right? And then there would be 1 or 2 of the companies in the roundtable would share maybe a case story from their point of view. And then there would be some discussions around the tables on these topics and how to do it. And then we would end it with a dinner.
So it basically means that it's just a smaller group that can easier discuss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Are these things hard to learn?
It's just outside the comfort zone of most of the people that we work with. So, conceptually, it's not hard, right? But, kind of I ask people on LinkedIn, it's a simple poll, why did you go into finance and accounting in the first place? And the results are not going to shock anyone, but 55% said, I like to work with numbers. 35% said, I like to work with business. 10% said, I like to work with people. So we go into finance because we expect I don't have to work with people in this job. And maybe it was like that 10, 20 years ago. Today, yes, you need to be a numbers person, but you more need to be a people person, let's say, right? Because you do your analysis. Let's say it's in a spreadsheet, you send in an email to a business leader and say, here's the analysis, you figure it out. The likelihood of the business leader doing something with that analysis is close to zero. Like close to zero, we all know it. People are busy, like, okay, I have an email here, I don't know what it is, open the Excel sheet, it's like exploding with data and numbers. I don't know what to do with this, right? I have 10 meetings in a day, I have 100 decisions I need to make. I can't deal with your spreadsheet, right? So it's not going to happen. Instead, you need to package it, simple and easy way to understand, right? You probably need to go talk to this person. Maybe it could be a formal meeting, or just, hey, can we just take 5 minutes? I'm just going to walk you through this. And in that 5 minutes, even if you have half an hour, you still only have really 5 minutes, because you have to grab their attention, right? Are you working on a problem that's interesting to me, or are you just doing some stuff that is not interesting to me? Because if it's not interesting to me, forget about it. I'm not going to listen to you. Even if it is interesting to me and you're not able to communicate it in a way that I understand, forget about it. That's what your 5 minutes are for. Sometimes just 30 seconds. That's why we talk about elevator pitching, right? Because you need to convince people that you're worthwhile listening to. And that's really, really hard for maybe anyone, not just finance people, but imagine you're meeting a senior person in your company, and you have to convince them that the decision that they're about to make is not exactly the right one. They should do something a little bit differently. And you maybe have 5 minutes in a meeting.
So how would you do it actually?
So I would start with the answer. This is what I want you to do. Maybe I just say, okay, this is why we're here. This is the challenge that we're facing. And this is the answer or the recommendation that I think we should go with. And then I would underline it with arguments, right? So why is this a good idea? And of course, being a finance professional, I will have all the facts as well. I probably wouldn't present them because it wouldn't be needed. And with those arguments in place, I would say, okay, here's how we can move on to the next step. Here's the implementation plan. Here's the impact, financials, whatever it might be that we expect from it. And here's the tangible steps that we should take, right? So I make it as easy as possible for the leader to make a better decision. And I grab his or her attention by starting with, here's what we're going to do. So it's very much on point.
And they will listen because they hired you already.
They will listen because I start by telling them about an issue that's important to them.
Okay.
If I don't have something that's of importance to them, I shouldn't be talking to them.
Have you experienced that they wouldn't listen?
I've never really met a business leader who wouldn't listen when the premise is, I'm here to help you be successful.
Okay.
If, of course, they think that the premise is, I'm here to smack your face because you're performing poorly, of course they're not going to listen. If they're here to, if they think we're here to be a police person about, they're not doing well, of course they're not going to listen. But if they think we're here to help them, who would not accept quote unquote free help to do better? I struggle to find that person. Of course they do exist, right? But usually people don't listen because we're not doing it right.
Okay. The way you describe this 5 minutes, first 5 minutes, the first 30 seconds, sounds me a lot like a blog post.
Absolutely. You gotta have a hook.
Exactly.
If there's no hook, then why should people listen to you? Why should they keep reading? If you can't convince them, why is this a problem or an issue of importance to you? They're not going to read it. It's that simple. That's also why when I write blog posts, of course, I have refined the approach over the years, but I basically do a why, what, how. So why should you read this? What do I want you to understand? What's the concept, the framework, and how you're going to take that into your daily work.
And the trick is to do that in a conversation in the first 30 seconds for them to understand that whatever you have to say is worthwhile. So you will start saying, like, what is it? Right? No, what was the first one?
So it's basically a principle that's called SCQA, where it's not we haven't invented it, but we're just using it. So situation, complication, question, and answer. Right? So situation, the facts that we're standing in front. Sales is down 4%. That's a fact. Let's just say. Complication. A new Chinese competitor has entered the market with lower prices. So if we don't do anything, our sales are likely to drop further, right? Because they have lower prices. So why should consumers buy our product? Question, how can we regain the lost sale by the end of the year? Let's say you want to do that. So of course the gap between the question and the complication is usually big. But now if we are talking to a sales leader, she's probably
very interested,
right? Okay, how are we going to solve this? Answer, we're going to move into the premium product segment and maybe keep our prices. Okay, so that sounds interesting. Why is this a good idea? Well, it's because we have a high quality product. Okay, why do we have a high quality product? Well, consumers prefer ours. Ours is more durable, so on and so forth, right? So you can, it's called the pyramid principle, and you start kind of at the top, and then you can really go down into the details if you really want, right? So you got to have your arguments in order, you got to have your facts in order, but you don't have to keep going down into the pyramid if the person is convinced, right? So that, okay, how are we actually going to then do this? Well, the benefit is going to be, we're going to beat the sales target for the year, so we're going to catch up with the 4% and even more. We have to launch a marketing campaign to really reposition the product into this premium product segment, and we should get started within the next 2 months, and I'll talk to marketing about getting going. So I make it very easy for the sales leader to say, yes, I want to beat my target. Of course, I want to do that. Okay, you're going to make it easy for me because you're actually going to get things going with marketing. Approved.
Well,
right? But imagine it went like this. In our monthly performance analysis, we've uncovered that sales is down with 4%.
You lost me.
I've done some analysis, and here's the Excel sheet. Can you figure out what to do because we need to hit the target? Nothing's going to happen, right? I mean, it's just you're not making it easy for the leader to make a good decision. You have to make it easy for them.
Do you experience over the years that finance people, or maybe just people that you come across with that you would like to help, they do the other way around? They start with all the time.
All the time.
So they start with the details.
Yeah.
They say the what.
Yeah. They employ what we call bottom-up communication, right? So they start with all the facts. There's maybe, let's say, 10% of cases where you may want to start with the facts. So let's say you are laying off 1,000 people from your company. Okay, maybe you don't start by saying, we have to lay off 1,000 people, and here's why. Maybe you actually give a few of the facts. It's a challenging market, results are down, we are losing money, we need to do something. And then maybe you can go from the top, right? But 90%, if not more of the cases, you start with the answer. You start from the top. But the professionals we work with, we look at a lot of management reports, right? So reports that they produce typically on a monthly basis, and they share that with the leadership team. And you know what the first page look like? It's a 20 by 10 table filled with tons of numbers, and on the right-hand side, you have wall-to-wall text of comments. Imagine you're not a numbers person, even if you are, but let's say you imagine you're not a numbers person, and you're like, oh, monthly management report sounds exciting. And then you're met with this first slide. It's just not going to move a difference. It can't make a difference. So you need to do something different.
That's really interesting to think about. And you would think that is so obvious, right?
For people that are in the profession that has never seen it done differently, or maybe they have seen a marketing person or a salesperson do things completely differently, but they've not seen a finance person do it differently, then it's not hard to imagine why what I'm doing is not the right thing, because we've always done it like this way. Everyone is doing it like this, so it must be the right thing. But if you then turn around and ask, okay, so can you point to just a few decisions in the past 6 months that you actually helped improve? And can you point to an impact of these decisions where performance was improved, so you closed that 4% gap on the sales? No, not really, right? So they can't point to the impact that they have had. They can only point to all their spreadsheets and table-filled slides that they send along to the leaders they're supposed to support, right? So they can't find the impact that they have made on their business. And if you can't find the impact that you have made in a business, you shouldn't be there. Yes, there are some control and compliance tasks that are done in finance, for instance. They need to be done. Robots can probably do most of it today. So you have to prove your value. I even go so far as to say, if you're kind of that business partner or that value-creating person, you need to be your own weight worth in gold, right? It's not just about repaying your monthly your yearly salary. It's much more than that, right? And of course, depending on how big the company is, the opportunity can be bigger or smaller, right? And I could tell you tons of stories, maybe for another day, of how I have been part of making that impact. It's not just about me as an individual. Of course, I'm doing it together with other people. But I need to be able to storytell and articulate what was my role in it. And I vividly remember an interview once I had for a consulting role, and the partner from that consulting company kept asking me, so what was your role in this? What did you do? What did you do? And I wasn't kind of on point back then, and I didn't get the job, right? Because I couldn't articulate what was my role in actually leading and landing this impact. So if you can't be sharp on that, it's as if we weren't there. It didn't make a difference, however harsh it might be.
Did you know all of this before you started your company? Like, so how was it actually to start a company? Were you developing all these ideas, and were you able to actually sell while
I mean,
starting?
it's a bit with a modification, I would say, right? Because what happens in 2017 also is that at Merce, the company I'm at that time, they're actually investing quite a lot, and they're also developing us as finance professionals. Finally, because it was probably 7 years earlier, they told us we had to change ourselves, but only 7 years later, they really invested in also developing us as people. But there, I got also introduced to some of these concepts by a different consulting company that was leading this training program. So, of course, we looked at this training program and these materials and said, could we make that even more practical and simple, and then use it for our programs as well? So I somehow didn't know about it, but I hadn't used it myself. I had only just been introduced to it. I hadn't started telling stories about this, right? So I'm a storyteller, right? So as you say, I talked about a neighbor yesterday, right? So 2 days ago, of course, I didn't know about this story, but now I'm sitting here in a podcast and talking about this story, right? So I use all these impressions and experiences I get to tell stories about how we do things. So I didn't know about these things until this training program, but it just fit so naturally into how we wanted to build a company. But it wasn't me kind of putting that on a product. That was Michael, the co-founder, right? That really was the first full-time in this. So he's amazing at putting, products and concepts together. I'm probably more good at selling it and telling the story. So that's where we kind of complement each other, for instance, right? But we kind of knew about it. And of course, he's been a consultant for many years, so he also knew about it. But it wasn't like a household thing for us that was just easy to turn into a product. We also had to learn along the way.
We also, we started our company a year ago, so we are very young in this area. Would you give us the same recommendation as that to sell with stories, or you could comment on this?
I mean, the way things work really, really well for me is that I'm like the people I sell to, right? I'm a finance professional. I've been in maybe not all their shoes, right? Because I didn't go to a VP or CFO level, and sometimes we do, of course, talk to VPs and CFOs, but I know what their daily reality looks like. I know the challenges that they have because I've been there. Whereas if you're, just a classic broad-up consultant, you may have seen it many times because you work with different clients, but you haven't been there yourself, right? So when I sit and talk with these finance leaders, I can tell stories about myself, how I've been there, how I do this, and so on and so forth. Whereas the consultant maybe be able to say, 10 years ago, perhaps I had a job like you. Well, 10 years is a long time, right? I can say, yesterday I was at my interim assignment and I did this and that, right? Or, of course, a few years ago, I also worked in the industry. So I use myself and, of course, also stories of my colleagues to make it very relatable and realistic that working with us, you're actually going to get the benefits that you're looking for. Of course, now we have a lot of customer credentials as well to prove it, but I really use myself a lot as an example of being this shy introvert that didn't know how to talk to people to 10 years later being able to succeed in a role like that within a matter of weeks, where it would take 6 to 24 months for the average finance professional to maybe just get close at being successful. So I throw myself out there a lot, let's say, and also point a lot of the mistakes and flaws that I did during my career. I keep making a lot of mistakes, but I really learn from them because of the growth mindset.
Could you share some of your mistakes that really made you, really showed you some profound changes in your life?
Yeah, I mean, maybe profound changes is going to be tough, right? By sharing specific stories. But I remember I was it's probably 2015, 16ish. I'm working in a regional role, and the regional CEO, a great business leader, and lots of great learnings from him. But he's also traveling around to these kind of countries that are part of our region. And he comes back from one of these travels one day, and he says, he's really upset about what he has seen, and he's kind of gathering with a small regional team, just gathering around to share some of his experiences. And he's like, I was down there, and all they talked about was volumes to fill these container vessels. I saw nothing about price. didn't they get the memo that just 2 weeks ago we said in management we need to talk about price? I was really upset about this. And I'm like, actually, we don't have a lot of insights on price. So maybe I create kind of like a report so we can see how the prices are developing on a weekly basis. So I create this report in Excel and it's, heat charts and whatnot. And I kind of start sharing that. But I just shared kind of via email and, to the regional leadership team. And I've, of course, checked in with the CEO. Is this kind of what you're looking for? It's like, yeah, okay. So I just share that and I keep sharing that. I don't have much insights and I'm not even part of the discussions when they're using this. So I'm just creating a report out of good intent and it's needed probably, but I'm not involving myself in what is this leading to. So the impact of doing this is zero, right? So I had a great opportunity here to actually become involved in something, but because I didn't involve myself really, it turned into nothing, right? And there's many stories where like, okay, I have a standing invitation to be part of this morning meeting that the crew is having on this drilling rig that I'm now supporting. But I don't go. Well, I'm not needed there. Maybe it's just not, it's just more comfortable sitting in my office. I just didn't go. Right. So I didn't go. I didn't learn about what's going on in the business. And then when I look at the numbers, maybe I have no idea about what's happening. I just didn't do it. Right. And it's just so easy to not do things rather than do things. And, for 99% of the things we want to do in life, it's not going to kill us, right? Okay, if you told me, hey, Anders, you need to learn how to ride a motorbike, maybe I could find valid physical reasons for why I don't want to do it. If it's like, hey, Anders, do you want to come to this meeting? It's hard to find reasons for why I shouldn't do it if there's things to learn there, right? But I can still convince myself, yeah, it's just more comfortable not to do it. So we have great excuses for not doing things in our lives and our careers that can develop us. And most often we would take those excuses. Yeah, that's why you don't go to the gym in February, because I did it in January and my New Year's resolutions, I'll make a new one next year, right? So I don't have to go. It's fine. I can just lie on the couch and watch Netflix or whatever, right? It's so easy to make those excuses for ourselves. Why we don't do things? So then we don't do it, and we don't learn, and we don't grow, and then we don't succeed with the company or don't succeed in our career, and we're wondering, why didn't I succeed? I did all the right things. Did you really? I'm not sure.
Do you think that you would have a different approach back then if you were asked why you were doing that?
Maybe the approach would have been different if there had been a leader or a mentor or role model saying, hey, Anders, you need to be in that meeting. But there was no one telling me to be in that meeting, It was just myself. I had to push myself out to do it. It's the same reason why when we do learning programs, we know for a fact that the biggest determining factor for the person in the learning program learning something, doing something differently, changing their ways of working, is not that person themselves. It's the leader. Okay. The leader will hold them accountable to do things differently. If the leader is not holding them accountable, it's so easy to make the excuse and just not do it. So, you have started a company. Who's holding you guys accountable? There's no one holding you guys accountable. Well, didn't hit our target. It's okay. We're gonna hit it next year. Didn't do that. Product launch we thought about. We'll do it in 6 months. It's okay. Who's holding you accountable? There need to be someone holding us accountable. We can try to be our own accountability body, but it can only take us so far, right? We need to commit to someone else, and we need to have someone that's pushing us. That's of course why startups, they have advisory boards and companies have boards. There's governance, yes, of course, but it's also to have someone to hold them accountable to their strategy, to their goals, to their actions, so that it leads to the desired outcomes. Because if we don't hit those desired outcomes, then why are we doing these things in the first place?
I wrote this down. This is, I think that's going to be the next implementation that we do in our business.
But I think at a certain level, we are kind of like accountable to each other.
But are we?
Yeah, but it can
we
do
try
something.
to be, right?
It can do something to hold you accountable to each other, right? And that's good. It's better than you trying to only hold yourself accountable, right? So of course you should be pushing each other. We do that as well ourselves as well. So we have some goals that each of the roles need to hit. We have some kind of big rocks, which is kind of development goals for our company that we need to work on. So we can hold ourselves accountable to that, right? We can write in a contract and everything else, but what happens if we don't reach those goals? Maybe not so much. I mean, to be frank, in our 6 years of existence, we haven't hit our revenue target even a single year. But despite that, we have this growth award in Denmark called the Gazelle, right? So this Danish newspaper person, every year they would kind of say, who are the companies that have submitted their statement of accounts that in the past 4 years have grown by 100% or more and had a positive result in total over the period. They get this Gazelle award, right? So despite not hitting our revenue target even one single year, we have gotten the Gazelle the first 2 years we could get it, and we're also going to get it this year, and probably also going to get it next year. So there's always a silver lining to holding yourself accountable and setting goals. If you're very ambitious, you may not hit that goal, but looking a year back, you're actually much, much further along the way. But if there's no one holding you accountable, you're not going to get as far as you want.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a process for accountability or goal setting or things like that?
I think there's a lot of literature on this, right? I'm definitely not a guru on it, but I think what's important is that you stick to few goals, and you make them, you kind of like call it smart goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, and all these things, right? So few goals, and then you have a rigorous rhythm in how you are progressing on these goals. So if, a good book I can recommend is called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It also talks about, objectives and key results, for instance. But I think what's really interesting about this book is how do you really execute? And what they say is every single week in a small team, come together and look at the goals that you're pursuing. Right? Let's say you have 5 goals, you may be working actively on 2 or 3 of them because the others, they're progressing well. So in any given week, you are looking at 2 to 3 things that you want to improve. And as a team, you then make commitments to do something active in the next week. And you, of course, specify what that commitment is. So let's say, for instance, revenue is one of our goals. And of course, to get revenue, we need to get sales. And so we could make commitments every week to say, I'm going to reach out to customer X and I'm going to talk to prospect Y. And then next week, we again sit there in the meeting and I say, so Michael, did you reach out to customer X? Yes, and here's what they said. Did you reach out to prospect Y? No, I didn't really get to do it. Okay, so what's going to make you do it, right? So then you can hold yourself accountable. But every week, you basically look at your scoreboard and saying, are we progressing with the goals that we want to? And have we fulfilled our commitments? Then make new commitments for the next week, right? So you are pushing yourself to do 1 or 2 things, important things, every week to progress towards your goal. Then you're doing all sorts of other things, of course, during the week and operational stuff and whatnot, but 1, 2 important things every week. And with skill and grit and mindset and everything else, you will deliver on those commitments and you progress towards your goals.
This is so simple.
It's so simple. But if it's not simple, it's not going to work. Complex is the enemy of progress.
Wow. Is that your quote? No.
Probably not, but I still think it's true. I don't know. You can Google it. If no one else has claimed it, I'll claim it.
Before we started, we talked a little about some business principles that you and your partner got to refine. Could you maybe just go a little bit on those business principles?
No, so I think what we kind of refined was what is the concept of business partnering and how can we kind of tell that to our target audience, our potential clients, what it is, right? Because again, speaking of simplicity, we had clients where they had made I think it was 160 slide deck presentation of all sorts of things to explain and describe what is this concept of business partnering. We've also seen 64 or 70 pages slide decks trying to explain what this is. But a bit like, that Excel sheet you're sending to the business leader, you're receiving this, you're like, 170 slides. I'm just not going to look at it. Yeah. Right? So we had to simplify it down to, we actually simplified it down to an equation. We said it's about insights times influence equal to impact. Insights is when you can bring new perspectives to the table that the decision makers don't know about, but can help them make better decisions. Very wide, of course, yes, but it does also wide where insights come from. And then, of course, we can detail that out further. Influence is, of course, your ability to make those insights heard, make them count. So sending the email is not going to make it. Presenting bad in a meeting is not going to make it, right? So you need to be able to communicate on point. You need to build relationship with these people. You need to understand, okay, so I like to communicate this way. She likes to communicate in that way. It's annoying that she likes to communicate in that way, but if I want to communicate to her, I need to adjust my approach, for instance, right? So I need to do something differently than what's comfortable, normal to me to communicate with her, the business leader, right? So that's kind of the influence piece. And the impact piece is then, of course, business results, customer satisfaction, and the ability to articulate those stories or those impacts that we've had. And there's a multiplier between insights and influence. So, of course, if one of them is 0 or very small, your impact is very small as well.
The way you describe the influence is very different than what I first imagined when you use the word. Because when you're describing influence, I thought about position, right? But the way you describe it, it's very much about your individual approach to the insights.
100%. 100%. I mean, so, the people that we work with, they always have to influence 1 to often up to 3 levels up in the organization, right? So they cannot just say, I have the most stars on the shoulder, so you have to do what I say, right? Of course, that's not what influencing is either, but you really have to influence high up in the organization. And that's a tough challenge, right? So how are you actually going to make people listen to you? Well, we talked about it, right? Introduce a problem that's of interest to them, come with something that makes it easy for them to say yes. But how you communicate, how you influence is, of course, also a big part of it.
Okay. Do you have anything more?
I am just blown
Learning.
away, but the advice with who is holding you accountable, because just stays in my mind, because I've been feeling lately that we tend to, like, even though we promise each other that this will be done and that will be done, but if it doesn't happen, there are no consequences really. So I really like the idea of maybe putting.
We did start having weekly meetings, talk about progress and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. But maybe we just need to be a little tough on each other.
Yeah, and maybe it's not just about being tough, right? Maybe it's also to understand, so what's the root cause of you not doing it? Is it because you are too busy with doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing? Or is it because you are not actually comfortable doing or being in the role that we have assigned to, we've agreed to? I mean, there could be many different causes, right? So, of course, 1 week slip up, it's okay, right? But 2-3 weeks slip up, there's usually something else at play. Right. So, for instance, what we start every weekly meeting with now is kind of like a simple energy check-in. How are you feeling? And it's every single partner's responsibility to say, I have too much now. Please help me. Because if we don't do that, how are the other partners going to know that you need help? Of course, you can see the signs. He or she is not able to deliver on what they have promised. He or she is falling behind. He or she looks very stressed. But it's our responsibility to say this. And I've done this a few times in the past year, because I had a long interim assignment where I was out of the office quite a lot, and I was being put on different training programs where I had to train people, and I was like, I just can't really deal with it. We have to find a way where you take some of these learning training modules off my back, so that I can actually focus on the assignment over here. Because I was loving everything I was doing, but even too much of a good thing can sometimes become too much, right? So it's your responsibility to say, I'm not able to deliver or execute as we have expected. Help me, right? That's on you to say that, and that's tough to admit, I need help, but you're in this together, right? It can be someone outside saying, hey guys, why are you not achieving what you want to achieve? And you can be held accountable to that, but at the end of the day, it's your company, right? It's your business. So it's you as a company that's not achieving, right? So you need to understand why, if that's what's happening, right? And there's always something at play. And that's what driving a business together means, right? That you're not just professionally in it together, right? You depend on each other for your livelihood, let's say, and that's a big thing, right? So you own it to yourself to say, I need help, or I can take this from you and I can run with it for this week, so you can clear up your schedule a little bit. That makes it easier. But if you never have those conversations, then, the tough love, of course, only goes so far, right? And then you may hit a breaking point at some point and say, you know what, we should be in business together. And we hit that point with our third co-founder, where he wanted to not necessarily go in a different direction, but he wanted to expand into things that we didn't feel like was what we wanted to do. He wanted to have a different kind of financial model for the company that we didn't feel like we wanted to do. So we had to buy him out, and that can happen too, right? So you're in this together, and you need to feel accountable to each other. It helps when someone else outside is pushing as well, but you also need to speak up if you need help.
How do you bounce back from that, from having to take such a tough decision like this?
You just keep building.
Keep building.
Yeah.
Nah.
I have one last question. If you look towards your past when you were starting, what would be the advice that you would give, for example, to us as a young business, to us as a 1-year-old business? What is it that you know now that you didn't know then, and would be like a good advice for us to?
Yeah. So I would give the same advice as I would give to my 22-year-old self when I was just starting my career, just to focus on what's right here, right now in front of you. Not think about what the business could become in 3 years or 5 years. Sure, you have a strategy, you have a plan and all this stuff, but in your day-to-day work, focus on now, right? And then, once in a while, you can do the exercise that I do, is look 1 year back and say, are we further? You can also do another exercise, which is we call it What's Better. We got this from this business coach. So every 3 months when we get together on an offsite in a partner team, for instance, we would ask, what's better? What's better since last time we met? And then, you sit there, you think about, okay, what's actually better? And then you put that up on the wall, people present and so on. And then you ask, find 1 or 2 more things that's better. Right? So that you focus on the positive, the things that are moving forward, strength-based approach, rather than saying, what's not working, what do we need to fix? There's probably 1,000 things you need to fix. Right? So you can also do those reflections exercises, but in your daily work, focus on what's right in front of you. I think that's key.
Thank you very much for giving your time to us,
Yeah, you're welcome.
and thank you for coming on our podcast.
Is there where can people find you?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. 350,000 followers there. So lots of people have found me, but there's room for many more.
Perfect. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
It's been an honor.